All right, very, very, very quickly, I wanted to make basically an update video. I never made an original video, but I've been arguing with a lot of people, especially I could name a couple. I called in one morning to Fox News and I argued with them. I called in one morning to a show on Patriot XM. I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I argued with him about this. All of these people who were saying Alec Baldwin was guilty of murder and this, that, and other, I kept insisting, it's like, hey, you idiots. First of all, he was on a set. There is a person who's responsible for the weapons that come onto the set. That person they sometimes refer to as a weapons master. Alex Baldwin was handed a weapon, at which point he pointed it at someone and fired a shot. It's not his responsibility as an actor, you idiots. It's not his responsibility that the weapon be, how should I say, not loaded with live ammo. That's the weapons master who's supposed to do that. You see, it's if you're an actor and you're on one of these sets, let's say you're on the set of Halo, and somebody hands you a 50 caliber rifle or some shit. You assume that the rifle is loaded with like flash ammo or something for CGI effects or whatever. You don't think that the person's going to really put a 50 BMG round in the goddamn rifle. But anyway, you know what? This is what happens when you argue with stupid people. What ends up happening is you go into the circular conversations about nothing. And at the end, this is exactly what happens. The person gets acquitted. So anyway, it says all charges dropped against Alec Baldwin. In the Russ case, criminal charges against Alec Baldwin will be dropped. In the Russ case, Yahoo Entertainment has confirmed the actor faced 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. No, you morons. That's not manslaughter. Manslaughter would not occur in the situation like this. But okay, I'll keep reading. For the accidental shooting death of cinematographer Halina Hutchins, as of now, the film's weapon handler. There we go. Thank you. Fuck. Stupid motherfucker. Anyway, as of now, the film's weapon handler, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, still has charges standing against her. We are pleased with the decision to dismiss the case against Alec Baldwin, and we encourage a proper investigation into the facts and circumstances of this tragic accident. The actor's attorneys, Luke Nikas, AMD. Isn't it supposed to be AND, like end? Alex Shapiro. These guys got to start goddamn proofreading this shit. It's like if y'all can't handle proofreading, get Chat GPT or something and fire the rest of these people who are editors. I don't know what's going on over here. It says the move comes 1 month after Special Prosecutor Andrea Reeb stepped down from the case. Baldwin's lawyers argued her appointment was unconstitutional due to her status as a Republican lawmaker in the New Mexico House of Representatives. Newly appointed special prosecutors Carrie Morrissey and Jason Lewis are expected to dismiss Baldwin's charges without prejudice. That means he could be charged in the future as they continue their investigation. However, that appears unlikely. Yeah, okay, first of all, you're an actor on a stage. It's just like if you're doing like Star Wars and they hand you a lightsaber. You assume that the thing is safe and that all you're supposed to do is act and you're supposed to swing the lightsaber around. What you don't assume is that the guy actually gives you a real fucking lightsaber and the thing is shooting plasma out of it and that you're going to swing it and cut the person's head off in real life. The weapons master is the person responsible for that. So here's the issue. I think what ultimately happened, and I could go to Wikipedia and I could read the points of the case, because I always read about this Gutierrez Reed. I heard this person already had safety concerns filed against them. So once I read that, in fact, I could go to Wikipedia in a minute, but once I read the fact that that weapons master had safety concerns filed against him, I was like, yeah, it's over. Alec Baldwin's getting acquitted. In order for Alex Baldwin to really be charged with manslaughter, he himself would have had to have put that ammo in there and not known whether or not that ammo was live or not live. Or he himself would have had to have brought that gun to that set And everybody, hey, everybody, look at my new gun. I'm going to use this gun on the set. And that gun be a real gun that actually fired a real bullet, and it'd be his fault, not the weapon master. See, this is the problem. You have too many of these people, especially these politically, because there's a lot of people who don't like Alec Baldwin. I'll just say it just like that. Alec Baldwin, he was on, I think he had shouted at his daughter or something like that. And there's a lot of people who didn't like him for that. Then there's a lot of Republicans who didn't like him because he was taking like some Democrat leaning stances on something. Because this was like years ago. And it's obviously not important because it's irrelevant to the case. But the simple fact is, the moment I started reading about the gun in question, because it was one of those old style, like, like a single action army or something. And then on top of that, it was this Gutierrez Reed. As soon as I read that person had safety complaints following him, I was like, yeah, it's over. But this is what happens. See, you can't argue with these dumbasses. You just can't. There's people who are biased, and then there's just people are just plain stupid. This is the reason why ChatGPT is going to take over. It's because there's too many stupid people that need to be deleted. And ChatGPT is going to delete them. So anyway, where is it? It says when it was first announced Baldwin would be criminally charged, he faced 5 years in prison if convicted on the most serious count of involuntary manslaughter. That was because prosecutors included a 5-year mandatory firearm enhancement. So these people had trumped up the charges. Now, first of all, I have to wonder if this was political or if they did this just to show off. Because first of all, if you brought me a case and I'm a prosecutor and you bring me an actor and you say, yeah, the actor was handed a firearm on set. It's like, wait a minute. How the fuck are you charging this guy for firearm enhancement? This isn't even his gun. But anyway, in order to avoid further litigious distractions by Mr. Baldwin and his attorneys, the district attorney and the special prosecutor have removed the firearm enhancement. Of course, it wasn't his. To the involuntary manslaughter charges in the death of Helena Hutchins on the Rust film set. Heather Brewer, a spokeswoman for the New Mexico 1st District Attorney, told Yahoo Entertainment of that early decision. The prosecution's priority is securing justice, not securing billable hours for big city attorneys. Thank you. When Reeb stepped down, it appeared to be another blow to the prosecution in terms of public perception. After much reflection, I have made the difficult decision to step down as special prosecutor in the Rust case. Yeah, good for you moron. So anyway, Baldwin was rehearsing with the gun that went off and killed Hutchins. He's maintained that he did not pull the trigger. Now, okay, before I even go to Wikipedia about that, because I don't even remember, I read about this a while ago, and from what I read, I knew he was going to get off. Here's the thing. What a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people wouldn't know, a lot of those older guns, and as a gun owner, I know this, a lot of those older guns, especially like I'm thinking specifically of the single action army, even though this may or may not have been that gun specifically, but the Colt single action army, a lot of those guns, cowboys and peacekeepers and whatnot, they used to carry those guns. And even though the gun may have had a 6-chamber barrel, spinner, whatever you want to call it, even though it may have had a 6-chamber holder for bullets, they would only load it with 5 chambers, and they would put their firing pin down, and the firing pin would be on an empty chamber. Why was that? Well, because revolvers that are modern revolvers, they have like a cross-block safety around the firing pin. Because the problem was when these cowboys would bump on their horses, like they bump it up and down and shit, sometimes a firing pin would hit the bullet and the bullet would fire, and sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot. And they had never even put their finger on the trigger, nowhere near the trigger. But the problem was the firing pin, which was being, hit by the hammer. The hammer you could tap the hammer, and if you hit the hammer hard enough, the hammer would come down on the firing pin, hit the bullet, and the bullet would fire off. Like that used to be a big problem with those revolvers back in the day. So what they did was somebody engineered a cross-block safety of some type, which basically made it so that unless you had pulled that trigger, that firing pin would not be fired. And even if the firing pin, well, no, I'm sorry, not the firing pin, if the hammer was tapped or hit, it wouldn't come down, hit the firing pin, and hit the bullet, and then the bullet wouldn't be fired. So my thinking is, now I haven't seen all the evidence myself, but obviously the court did. My thinking is that this was one of those type of guns. It was an older model revolver. My thinking is that, and he insisted he didn't pull the trigger. Now there's two possibilities there for me. This is what I'm thinking. Either he's mentally blocking it and he actually did it, but he can't believe that he actually did it. He can't believe that he actually could have shot somebody because he wasn't intending to shoot somebody. Or he didn't pull the trigger and perhaps the hammer came down on the firing pin because of maybe he tapped it or something. Because we all understand how a gun works. We understand, well, some of us, because these stupid goddamn Democrats, these morons who keep talking bad about AR-15s, they don't understand how they work. But the bottom line is, perhaps, just perhaps, something bumped his hammer and the hammer hit the firing pin and it fired a shot. That's a possibility. Even if the hammer looks like it's down, that hammer, if it's bumped or tapped, can still hit the firing pin with enough force to fire the bullet. So when I saw those guns, because I never watched Rust. I honestly never watched the show, but I do understand guns. When I first heard this story, and I heard that, and I heard what he said, he's like, oh, I didn't even pull the trigger on the thing, and it was an old gun, and this, that, and other. The first gun that popped in my mind was the Colt Single Action Army. That was the first gun, and this may not have been that gun. I'm just saying. The first gun that popped into my mind was the Colt Single Action Army, because that gun was notorious for, misfires and whatnot. So, well, let's go to Wikipedia. Let's see what they had to say. Okay, so on Wikipedia, they actually talk about the Rust shooting incident, October 21st, 2021. Yes, this was the shooting. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was fatally shot, and director Joel Souza was injured on the set of the film Rust when a live round was discharged from a revolver used as a prop by actor Alec Baldwin. Now, first of all, no live rounds should ever be on a movie theater set. If I'm not mistaken, there was an episode of Columbo where something like this happened, where a person was shot and it turned out that this was actually murder because this person wanted the person dead, and what they did was they changed the ammo. Now, if I'm wrong about that, or if you know the episode, you fill in the blanks. But I remember seeing an episode, it was either Columbo or it was Murder, She Wrote. Or it was Matlock, because the problem is there's 3 shows. All of them had the exact same thing in common for the most part. But the bottom line is, if you saw that episode, feel free to write a comment, because I maybe I'm misremembering it. I saw this shit like 30 years ago. So, I may or may not remember it perfectly, But anyway, they don't even tell you what type of gun it was, but it says convictions, none so far. It says negligent use of a deadly weapon. So obviously, he's not getting hit for that. It says on January 19, 2023, the Santa Fe District Attorney announced that Baldwin, an armorer, that's what they call this person, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, armorer, but sometimes they call the person a weapons master, the person who's on the scene and who's supposed to be responsible for anything that's supposed to be a weapon on the scene. So armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed would be charged with 2 counts each of involuntary manslaughter, and in the alternative with 2 counts each of manslaughter. First Assistant Director David Halls agreed to plead guilty to the charge of the negligent use of a deadly weapon. On January 31st, 2023, Baldwin was criminally charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Now, so these are the facts. Production of Rust was suspended. The incident prompted a discourse on occupational safety in the film industry, the treatment of its employees, and the use of real guns as props. See, that's the problem right there. I always assumed that nowadays that they were using airsoft guns as props and that they were just filling in the shot with CGI effects and sound effects. That's what I assumed. But apparently that's not true. So, okay, it says background. Okay, so this is Alec Baldwin. We know who he is. My question is, what about the gun? I want to hear about the gun. That's what I want to hear. It says some crew members, wait, safety complaints and walkout. How? Yeah, safety complaints. The beginning of Rust production came amidst a potential strike by members of the international IATSE over working conditions and low pay. On October 4th, it was announced that IATSE members voted 98.68% in favor of authorizing a strike with a voter turnout of 89.66% of eligible voters. Hannah Hutchins supported the IATSE. She wrote in an Instagram post standing in solidarity with our IATSE crew. Okay. Some crew members claim firearm safety protocols were not distributed with the call sheets and were not strictly followed on the set. They claim a medic was absent during the construction of the film's sets. Furthermore, crew members grew upset with what they claimed was a lack of adequate hotel rooms. Crew members alleged producers would only allow. You can read the rest of this shit yourself because I'm telling you, it's like, it already, all I needed was to get to the logical ending, which I came up with, and Alec Baldwin has been cleared. And that's all I needed to get to. But the thing I was looking for was the gun. I wanted to know what type of gun it was. Events, criminal charges, events, preparations for rehearsals. Okay, now look what it says. It says, Gutierrez Reed placed 3 guns used as props on a cart. Among them were a plastic gun that could not shoot live ammunition, a modified weapon that could not fire any type of ammunition, and a solid frame .45 Colt revolver replica made by Pieta. The last was the one that Baldwin fired, a .45 Colt revolver. Okay, now I want you to notice something. It was a replica, but they didn't say what gun it was a replica of. Because when I think .45 Colt revolver, I automatically think about the Colt Single Action Army. Automatically. Most of you who don't know gun history, you wouldn't think of that. But it doesn't tell exactly what type of gun it was. So let's see, .45 Colt. Oh, look right here. The first word that pops up, Colt Single Action Army. Look at that. That's the Colt Single Action Army. Now, I don't know if he had that gun. I don't know because they don't say. But the Colt Single Action Army was right there. And let's see if it talks about it. It says history, engraving, loading, and operation. This is the important thing. So it says original instructions for operation of the Single Action Army, both by Colt and the United States Army Ordnance Corps, specifies loading all 6 chambers and carrying the revolver habitually with the hammer cocked in the safety notch. Specifically, the 1874 U.S. Army, blah, blah, blah. It says, bring the hammer to the safety notch, keep it there until the pistol is to be fired as part of the loading instructions. Colt continued to provide instructions specifying a revolver was to be carried with all 6 chambers loaded with the hammer on the safety notch from 1874. The advertisements for the Single Action Army. These revolvers, it says the Single Action Army 1877 and 1878 all instructed these revolvers should be carried with the hammer resting in the safety notch. Colt's advertisements in the 1920s through 45, after which the first generations were discontinued, instructed that the revolver may be carried cocked with the hammer in the safety notch. But there's a part that they should mention that this thing would fucking go off in your pocket if you tapped it. And it's there somewhere, but wait, it's here somewhere because you can read this shit yourself. Hold on. Is Single Action Army, the safety notch pins, or what is this? It is possible to fire the SAW. The SAW, that's what they called the SAA. Yeah, this was a dangerous fucking gun. Because the thing about it, if you accidentally tap that shit would fire a shot. You'd be screwed. Like, that thing would blow a hole right through your boot. Wait, I'm sure somewhere it said, okay, well, wait, I'm sure somewhere I could read about that, but there's a video by Hickok45. He's on YouTube, and he explains the history of the SAA, Colt Single Action Army, and he also explains exactly what I've been saying about the Hammer Trigger Safety Group. So basically, I'm done. Alec Baldwin's been cleared. All you Republican haters and all you people who hated Alec Baldwin, you could just sit on it and spin because there's nothing you can do about it. He's clear.